Welcome to Words Unspoken, the Hills podcast, paying tribute to the reality show that aired on MTV from 2006 to 2010.
We are two Southern sisters rewatching The Hills in 2016 and chatting about it weekly for your entertainment.
My name is Susan, and I'm a 30-something photographer who hates most reality shows but loves The Hills. I have been rewatching the show for a few months.
My name is Jem. I'm a professional in my 30s who hasn't seen the show since it originally aired, so I'm really looking forward to reliving the magic again 10 years later.
We watched the first few seasons of the show in real time when we were younger versions of ourselves, and we are so excited to revisit every episode from our new points of view. Today we will be talking about Season 2, Episode 4, Who Do You Trust? Jem, I am so excited to talk about this episode. It's one of my favorite episodes from the whole The Hills run.
Susan, I'm so excited to talk about this episode, and it's one of my favorite episodes, too.
We start out at the Hillside Villas. Heidi and Lauren are chatting about Brody, and Heidi gets very upset with Lauren when she says she just wants to be friends with Brody. So as we discussed last week, she's just not feeling Brody.
Why did I not see this back in the day? Why did I not realize that Lauren didn't like Brody and didn't want to date him? At the time, I just thought she was being coy, but now it's all clear.
Well, it's because we wanted to believe the Lauren Brody story. I mean, they're such a cute couple. I love Brody. I still love Brody. I still want him to get together with Lauren, even though I know the true story behind everything. I really do. They're an adorable couple.
Well, luckily, after Lauren talks about how Jason broke her, Heidi reassures the world that she and Spencer are really
secure. Jem, are you having a hard time reading your own handwriting?
I can't read anything I wrote down.
That was such a hilarious moment, though, when she's like, well, Spencer and I are super secure in our relationship now. And I was thinking, you mean after you tried to trick him that you were pregnant, now you suddenly have this wonderful relationship because of that? Okay, not buying it, Heidi.
And when Heidi says that, Lauren goes, yeah, in the most unconvinced voice you've ever heard.
So Heidi says she and Audrina are going to meet up for dinner.
Solo Mish.
So I guess Heidi doesn't have too many friends and too little time. But I also want to know, who is Heidi telling to grow up, herself or Audrina, when she says, grow up?
I don't know, but Lauren does say, I'm so proud of you, and it's so mature. So maybe she's just congratulating herself that she is growing up.
Yeah, she said it's a big step.
And Lauren says, my little Heidi is growing up.
A trifle bit condescending, but, I mean, Heidi is pretty immature.
I mean, in that moment, it does seem like Heidi's having a really grown-up moment. If she's meeting up with her arch enemy and the other person that's fighting for the heart of Spencer.
Oh, Lord.
Which every girl wants. I'm dying to get to the next scene, Susan.
Well, let's
my
get
favorite
there.
person.
We head to Bolt House.
Yes.
Wherein we see Brent.
Did his hair disappear and get shorter?
I didn't really notice. He looked the same to me.
It wasn't as big as it normally is, and I was a little let down, but this was the only letdown in the whole episode that I had overall.
So Heidi wants 2 days off for her mom's birthday, and Brent kind of looks at her like, it's your vacation days. You can use them how you want. And you can tell he's thinking, does she not know how vacation days work? You don't have to get me to approve what you're going to do.
Maybe they deleted the scenes where Heidi asks Brent things like, can I go to the bathroom and can I go home for the day at 5 o'clock?
So as Heidi is walking out of Brent's office, the camera seems to like zoom in on her backless dress. And I wrote in my notes, what in the world is Heidi wearing?
Strangely enough, the focus of the scene zooms into Heidi's outfit and Mullet Max comes out of the woodwork.
Oh, Max.
Max, I've never seen you before. Where did you come from?
I think Max is from Central Casting.
I think Max was sent in 5 minutes beforehand by MTV. And there does seem to be some confusion later in the show about his role at the company. So it really makes me wonder if he worked there before this day.
He's an assistant.
Speaking of Jem and Susan for social justice, we also are not about policing outfits. But I think we can all agree that in the workplace there are sometimes standards, especially for women's clothes, about what is and isn't appropriate. So with that disclaimer, let's hop into this scene.
So Max, the intern slash assistant or whatever he is, calls Heidi and says that someone talked to him about the dress code earlier, and so he just wants to pass that along to her, which would have been fine if he had stopped there, but he continues by saying, and your outfit really isn't appropriate. Jem?
Yes, Susan?
Is Max Heidi's boss?
Max is not Heidi's boss. He's also not an intern, as we find out later, but he's not Heidi's boss. And I love how she has a total poker face and says, I'll talk to Brent.
Max needs to shut his face. It's none of his business. If someone has a problem with Heidi's outfit, it needs to come from a supervisor and not someone who works for her. I think that was totally inappropriate, and I don't appreciate it.
Max, go trim your mullet and leave the ladies of the office alone. With your outfit policing.
So then we head over to Teen Vogue. Lauren and Whitney are chatting about Brody and about kissing Brody. And was he a good kisser? And Lauren's still super lukewarm about him. She doesn't want to talk about him. And then she says, I don't kiss and tell. Well, I guess I did tell you. But she just is not enthusiastic. Like, there's no sparkle in her eyes when she talks about him or anything. It's pretty much a boring scene, though. So we're going to just head to the Piranha Cafe, to the good stuff.
Let's get to the good stuff.
Spidey is lunching together.
Again, midday dates. I don't get it.
Filming is best at midday because the lighting is better than at night.
Photographer things.
So Heidi tells Spencer about the Max thing and he immediately becomes indignant.
He says, I can't wait to see him at the club.
That was so funny.
That is the only place that people can meet.
Heidi says she's having dinner with Audrina tonight, and Spencer quickly goes into panic mode because you can tell he's immediately thinking, oh no, she's going to find out everything.
She's on to me.
And he starts saying, oh, you're suddenly having dinner with her. She was a mortal enemy last week.
Susan, you're getting so good at your Spencer impression. I'm really proud of you.
What is she going to do to try to snipe that?
Perfect.
He is already trying to poison Heidi's mind and set the stage because he knows that she's probably going to tell Heidi that he called her that day, that he's been trying to hang out with her. He knows everything will be revealed and he's going to be screwed. So he's trying to be like, oh, she's going to ruin us and blah, blah, blah.
A timeline is about to be established by the investigators, and there's nothing the perpetrator, Spencer Pratt, can do. Veins are popping out of his neck. He screams, think about Audrina's motives, with the most uncomfortable, nervous face.
He says, oh, Audrina's going to be all like, I'm going to be your friend and tell you this and that. You mean the truth, Spencer?
Oh, Spencer.
I mean, he is just panicking. It's actually really funny because you can tell he's just thinking, like, his house of cards, his flimsy house of cards is about to come crumbling down.
But I think he has the perfect subject for his Weasley ways, his pratfally ways.
Then, all of a sudden, lunch gets super interesting because Max and Elodie show up. They go to the window and start ordering their food, and Spencer just can't help himself. He must defend Heidi's honor after all.
She definitely cannot stick up for herself, so it's up to you, Spencer.
Jem, this has nothing to do with Spencer. He should not be fighting Heidi's battles for her. It is one thing if it's like a friend thing. This is a work thing. This is the most inappropriate thing ever, and if a guy ever did this to me, I would dump him. This was humiliating for Heidi.
Luckily, according to Spencer, everybody he hangs out with loves the way she dresses.
Don't comment on what she wears.
And then the physical violence begins.
Well, before he says, you're just an intern, like, oh, that's such a insult. And he's like, I'm not an intern. And you can tell Spencer's thinking, oh, well, darn it. That just made me look dumb.
And then we get to a little moment I like to call the Spencer shove.
First of all, Max is trying to, like, walk away because he's like, I don't want to get into a fight with this fool. We're on TV. This is ridiculous. And so he, like, says something to him and goes past him and just kind of pats him like, dude, let's just drop it. It's the lightest little pat. And Spencer immediately says, hey, did you hit me? Did you just hit me? That's assault. Oh my gosh, that's assault. A little pat is assault, Jem. Max is like, is this guy for real? And just starts laughing because you can tell he's thinking, does this guy really think I'm going to fight him in the middle of a Los Angeles street?
And then Max issues the ultimate insult and calls Spencer a tool.
Because Spencer was making fun of Max's orange sunglasses. And he keeps trying to egg him into a fight.
You just called me a tool. Do you have any idea what I'm gonna do to you, homeboy?
Elodie is so disgusted by this display. The look on her face is priceless. I love it. Spencer says he's going to beat Max's ass. And then he tells Max to walk in front of a car, as one does.
Yeah, when I'm frustrated with people and I'm having a bad day and I'm really mad at somebody, I usually find that telling them to walk in front of a car makes me feel so much better, and it usually works. They usually do. So I have a lot of bodies on my record.
Like, really, Spencer? Is that the worst kind of insult you can think of? Because it's not very good. And then he says, I'll see you in the club again.
That's also what I say to people after I tell them to run into traffic. I'm like, see you at the club tonight. It's going down.
The funny thing is, because Max works for Bolt House, if he was at the club, he would probably be there in a professional capacity, or, Brent owns these clubs. So I think that Max would have a lot of backup if Spencer tried to beat his ass in the club. We then find out this is the first time Spencer and Elodie have met.
It's a great first impression, Spencer on Elodie.
Spencer says, I was being nice until he called me a tool. No, Spencer, I'm pretty sure that you said he assaulted you way before the tool comment. You were not being nice. You were being a condescending jerk. You were trying to start a fight. It was ridiculous. You were not being nice from the very beginning. I am so embarrassed for Heidi right now. That was so awful.
In front of two of her coworkers, and then he tries to be all like, I'm sorry, you get a hug, I'm not a jerk, and then does like the fakest hug and the fakest air kiss, and Elodie's just like, get me away from this guy who's trying to push people into traffic.
Elodie's like, I don't want to hug you. Did you see her whole body like cringes? Heidi's like, Spencer, you can't do that just because you're my boyfriend. I would be like screaming at him, and she doesn't seem that concerned about it. She's way too nice about this. I would have been furious. That's so embarrassing. Because everyone went back, or that they went back and gossiped about it for the rest of the afternoon.
Maybe being a princess, Heidi saw this as her knight in shining armor stepping up to the plate and defending her honor.
What if she liked it?
I think she kind of did.
No.
She wanted Max the mullet to walk into traffic.
Look, I don't think Max had any right to say anything to her. I'm mad at him for that. I don't think what he did was right, but that doesn't justify Spencer doing that. If Heidi wanted to address it herself, she should have. Spencer has no business in that. It was ridiculous.
It's not your fight, Spencer. It's not your fight.
So then we head back to Teen Vogue. Whitney is shopping from the closet. They're talking about Audrina and Heidi having dinner that night.
Susan, did you notice that Lauren was reading Perez Hilton at the beginning of the scene?
I did not.
She was scrolling through his blog, and it made me laugh because that was one of those things that I totally forgot existed before you could scroll through Twitter and really your Facebook feed. There was no Facebook feed in those days. But she was totally reading Perez Hilton, and I actually did the thing where I tried to look really closely and see who the articles were about and what Perez had written on the pictures, and it just made me laugh because she was probably on the pages of Perez Hilton along with Jason and the gang, and it was just kind of funny that she was reading a site that she was probably on regularly.
Wouldn't that be funny if she was reading an article about herself?
Susan, it's Hillsception.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. So then we head to Lucy's El Adobe Cafe.
Susan, I really thought for 1 second that they were going to Spencer's Mexican restaurant that he's so obsessed with that he invited all the girls out to. What was that place called?
Dawn.
Somebody tweet us at the Hills Podcast and tell us what Spencer's place is called. Spencer, tweet us.
No, don't tweet us.
Spencer, please do not contact us on social media ever again.
Lauren and her husband had their first date at a Mexican restaurant. I was like, what if it's Don Antonio's?
Don Antonio's. Ding, ding, ding. I love how in the scene, Audrina slyly sneaks in something about hooking up with Spencer and goes, ew, like, who would ever want to do that? It's her little subtle dig towards Heidi, like, why are you doing this?
A little shade.
Mm-hmm.
Then she's like, he's not my type. Heidi says, I'm sick of people coming up to me saying, watch out for Spencer.
Maybe there is a reason.
Heidi's like, you're not there when we're alone. You don't see how he looks at me.
Yeah, we do. We see it on camera, and it's more than what I need to see.
You can just tell that Heidi is really conflicted, because if all these people are coming up and telling her things about Spencer, it makes her stop and think, well, maybe they're right. But then when they're alone together and he's being super nice to her and she really does care about him, she's just being torn between, listening to other people, but also trying to go with her own instincts, which seem to be telling her to trust Spencer and that she likes Spencer. So I understand that's like really hard, because at the end of the day, you really do, like you're talking about here, you have to go with what your gut tells you to do, and you shouldn't listen to other people, because other people aren't always to be trusted.
And let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, when we were Heidi's age, or we still are the age that Heidi was in this episode, we've all dated that person that may not be perfect in front of everyone else, but they're just so charming and sweet in private that you're like, why do my friends dislike this person so much? They're really great. They don't see the side that I see. So we have to put ourselves in Heidi's shoes for a minute and cut her a little slack, because she is in an awkward position.
I agree. Yeah, Jen, do you remember the time that I was dating someone that you really hated? And I kept telling you that, he's different when it's just the two of us. And then one day you were mad at him, and so you threatened on the phone that you wanted to cut him up with a chainsaw.
Yes, I do. And this episode is turning out to make me look really violent and murderous, because I talked about having bodies in traffic and then trying to cut up your mean boyfriend with a chainsaw.
You didn't really mean it, so it's not truly violent.
I was just trying to protect you, kind of like Spencer did versus Max.
No, not the same thing, Jim.
Same.
Spencer was attempting to stake his claim, is really what he was doing. Maybe he was threatened by Max. Sorry, I couldn't even get that out. Another thing, Jem, about Spencer is I really wish he would be a little more real and he would not play to the camera so much, because he might very well be a super nice guy who's just putting on their persona. So I do wish we could have a little more realness and see what he's really like. He decided the role he wanted for himself, so I do wish we could see more of a real Spencer, but alas, I'm not sure we shall.
I'll keep hope alive, because I have no idea what's going to happen next week, so I'll continue to watch the show innocently until you crush my dreams.
So pretty much Audrina and Heidi make up and forgive each other. So then we go back to the Hillside Villas, and Lauren and Heidi are discussing the situation. Jem, why are you rolling your eyes?
This scene is just so boring.
It is so boring. I find all the scenes tonight with Lauren, except the last one, super boring.
I feel like the episode is lulling us into a false sense of normalcy, and then we just get hit with the drama of Heidi asking Lauren to spy on Spencer at the club that night.
But before that happens, Jem, Heidi and Lauren are discussing this whole situation, and Heidi is actually being rational, because she asked Lauren who would make up something like that about all the stuff Audrina was saying about him calling her and trying to make plans when he and Heidi were together. And Lauren actually is like, give him a chance, blah, blah, blah. She's being super, pro Spencer.
Spencer, let the record show that Lauren Conrad stuck up for you in this scene, so don't say that she never did anything for you.
She says, I don't trust Spencer, but I trust that he likes you. And then she says, who do you trust more, Audrina or Spencer? And Heidi says, I don't know. And I think she says that because obviously I think the answer is Audrina, but she doesn't want to say that because it makes her feel really bad that she can't trust the guy that is her boyfriend.
And obviously we know from future events that Spencer and Heidi really do like each other. It's not like any of these other relationships on the show that have kind of come and gone. I mean, we know what happened. We know it's still happening. And so they're obviously falling in love to some extent. So let's give them that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they have a pretty long-running relationship, so...
Heidi comments a lot on how jealous she is and is kind of incredulous at her own jealousy, asking, I don't know when I got so jealous. And I wanted to say, Heidi, I know when you got jealous, when Spencer conspired to make this a big love triangle, and Audrina really didn't care.
Right. This is kind of a boring scene, though, Jem.
Yeah, super boring scene, Susan, but it is setting up major stuff for later. So Heidi asks Lauren to spy on Spencer at the club that night, and their last laughing about the fact that she just wants Lauren to go out so that she'll keep an eye on Spencer and see what he's up to.
And then we head to Brody's condo. Gem.
Susan, what happens here is a great moment in reality TV history because Spencer is at the kitchen counter on his laptop checking his MySpace.
Oh, MySpace, how I miss you.
Not enough friend requests from the ladies.
The only thing I miss about MySpace is how you could set your song.
Oh, yeah.
And it would play when you went to the page. Remember your top 8 friends?
Yeah, top 8. And then when you were online, there was like a little guy that had like little waves around his head, and it just meant that person was online. And it was like, oh my gosh, they're on their computer right now checking their MySpace account.
Oh, MySpace. Such fond memories. So Spencer says he has playmates rolling over since Heidi is out of town.
Do a Spencer impression right now, Susan.
Oh, the playmates rolling over since Heidi's out of town.
Susan, I never noticed before how similar Brody and Spencer are. I think I mentioned it last week or maybe the week before, but they're pretty much the exact same person in this scene.
Jem, I actually disagree with you on that. I think Brody comes across so much better than Spencer in everything that happens in this scene because he steps in and is like, I really like Heidi and I like her with you. And you can tell he slightly disapproves of the playmates coming over while Heidi is out of town. So I don't think he acts the same as Spencer. But they look a lot alike and their haircut is similar. But it looks so much better on Brody. So the playmates show up and Spencer says, Hugh Hefner, eat your heart out.
If I were a betting woman, which sometimes I am, Hugh Hefner was probably ragingly jealous of Spencer Pratt in 2007. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure, Jem, absolutely. They take shots together. What should we toast to? And Brody's like, to a great night. And Spencer says, a great night. How about to the most beautiful human beings alive? Oh, groan.
No hyperbole here. I'm sure those girls totally believed it was true. And Spencer was the wisest sage in the West.
Then we head back to the Hillside Villas and we find out that Heidi has conveniently missed her flight to go see her mother in Colorado, and she is now getting ready to go to area with Lauren and Jen Bunny.
Question, do we think Heidi even went to the airport, Susan?
100% she did not go to the airport. Absolutely
No
not. It was
not
all set up. Because she did not text Spencer and tell him she did not get on the flight or that she was going to area that night. She 100% did it to spy on him. Implement the spy plan, says Jen Bunny.
It was all an elaborate ruse. Sorry about your birthday, Mom.
Poor Mom. Hopefully it wasn't even her birthday.
Let's have a quick fashion chat because we haven't had time to do that this episode since there's so much to cover. Can we all take a moment and talk about Jen Bunny's white hooded sweatshirt?
I feel like she wears that more than one time in this whole season, too.
Sweater. Sorry, not sweatshirt.
It's lovely.
Maybe Jen Bunny was trying to make that her signature look.
So then we head to area
where there's a parade of girls in bootcut jeans.
Oh, bootcut jeans.
With heels. Those were the days. Actually, you could even wear them with flip-flops.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I would say that most people did wear them with flip-flops out on the town.
Totally. Man, why can't we be that comfortable now?
I'm pretty comfortable now in my bathrobe.
But your bathrobe is like a leopard satin $4,000 bathrobe.
That's because I'm an American princess.
I'm an American princess.
So Spencer is chatting up the playmates and talking about having naked picnics with them, talking about their Playboy spreads. Then he asks one of the playmates to marry him, and they're just like flirting back and forth, being silly.
This is the worst flirting I've ever seen on camera on a reality show, which is still saying a lot.
To flirt with one does not equal talking about marriage. That is not how you flirt with people.
That escalated quickly.
It really did. So then the girls show up at the door, and Kristen from Bolt House is like, oh my God, hi Lauren, guess what? Spencer's here. And then she proceeds to say some things that are unacceptable to Jim and Susan for social justice.
She says, whores, sluts, and bimbos pretty much in the same breath. And let's just take a little break and talk about how Jim and Susan for social justice do not approve of any of these three words, and they have no meaning in our lives.
Jem, I don't think this is the first time Kristen has said something I don't approve of. I feel like she's said something else before.
Who is she? I have no idea who this person is.
She just works at Bolt House, and she's worked the door with Heidi a couple of times back in the Jordan and Brian days.
Oh, Jordan and Brian. I had forgotten about you so quickly, but the memories just came rushing back. How I miss those simpler times.
Jem, did you see Brian's tweet the other day about he wondered why Jason didn't hook up with both of the girls since they were both in the apartment or something like that, or Jordan didn't? It was just super inappropriate.
That's quite a contrast to Heidi's most recent tweet about, it's some kind of gif of a girl like tossing her hair and waving her hand, and then it says something like, don't ever ask me about the hills, that's in the past, or something like that. But apparently Jordan's still tweeting about it. Or Brian, interchangeable, sorry, don't know who's who.
I kind of think Heidi was subtweeting us, TBH.
Oh, totally. She was like, Jim and Susan are still talking about me on a weekly basis on their extremely popular international hit podcast, Words Unspoken. I'm going to send them a little message. Thank goodness that you and I have Twitter to communicate with Heidi, Spencer, and the gang, our best friends.
Besties! Heidi looks so excited as they're walking up the stairs. She is ready to confront Spencer. I think she's kind of looking forward to it.
Primed for a throwdown.
So they walk right up to Spencer's table, which I think is their usual table. I think it must be, from what I kind of got from whatever they were saying, it's like they have that reserved every time because she called it our table. So she walked right up. She didn't even care. He was so busted, and the look on his face was awesome. He said, so you had a little plan. Look at you. Aren't you the sneakiest girl in town? No, Spencer, you're the sneakiest, shadiest guy in town. Brody and Lauren are like all hugging each other and being all sweet in the background as Heidi glares menacingly at Spencer. And then she says, I'm going to the bathroom. And Lauren and Brody chat, and Lauren's like, sorry, it seems like we crashed your guys' night. She's like, haha. She does not care that they're there with playmates. And Brody's like, if anything, you just made my night. And he's looking at her so sincerely.
You know what, Susan? The more I think about it, maybe if Brody hadn't been so sweet and falsely charming and a little bit smarmy and Spencer-like with Lauren, she might have liked him more if he'd been a little bit more rough around the edges, because remember, she was coming off of dating probably the most difficult guy of her life, and Brody was just too nice.
Or I also feel like he came on a little too strong too, like with all his compliments, and you're right, he was being too nice, but he just went that tiny step further that made it almost more creepy than nice. And he sounds insincere. That's the problem I have with it. As a 34-year-old woman, I now see that what he's saying is just that step over of being insincere. But as a 24-year-old, I thought that was super sweet. But yeah, I'm just like, it's a little too smarmy.
I think he thinks he's being romantic, but it's really disingenuous. And Lauren's not stupid. And I don't want to use the word nice per se, because you and I enjoy a good, nice guy. But like you said, it's not genuine. And you can tell it's just kind of what somebody has told him to say and do around women, or someone has encouraged this behavior in him at some point in time, and it's not going to work on someone like Lauren.
Exactly. And I think she's just might not be attracted to him. Like, there just doesn't seem to be any chemistry. A guy can be the hottest guy in the world, but it's the way he really acts that makes you either attracted to him or not, or at least that's how it is for me. Heidi comes back from the bathroom and says, get out of my way.
I did enjoy that. Speaking of a princess, it was kind of like Heidi was like a medieval princess with a really long, one of those long robes, that has like the fur trim with all the little like spots. Ermine robe? Is that what it's called?
Yes. She yells Lauren's name really loud and is like, come on, we're going.
How classic is this scene of them stumbling into the taxi, falling all over each other in a panic. And then the moment we've all been waiting for. The street vendor with flowers goes walking by. His arms full of roses. Yes.
No one was waiting for that but you.
I not only watched it once and rejoiced, but went back and watched that part again to be sure that my eyes were not deceiving me. It really was a street rose vendor. I love you, Florist of LA. I'll never forget you. I give you shout outs every episode. You're welcome.
Jem, I know you're super excited about the flower vendors, but you just missed a huge part of the whole evening, which is where the drunken girl attempts to tell Lauren what happened and how Spencer was, telling all these girls and hitting on all the girls in the club and telling them he wants to marry them and blah, blah, blah. And it's so funny. She can barely speak. She's so drunk. So then Spencer walks away with one of the playmates, and then they confront each other and yell at each other, and then he tries to make up with her all of a sudden, and she's like, I don't even care, it's fine, and that's when they drunkenly leave to get in the taxi cab. And did you notice when they were getting in the cab? Well, you probably didn't because you were too excited about the flower vendor, but there were definitely paparazzi around because you could see the flash bulbs going off.
Where can we go to find these photos?
Right, that's what I was thinking. I was like, too bad it was 10 years ago or maybe 9 years ago now, because I would love to see those photos.
I bet they're on Perez Hilton's archives.
Oh, I'm sure they are. You go right ahead and dig through those. I'll not be doing that.
I think that is how I will spend the rest of my Wednesday night, is Googling the dark corners of Perez Hilton, which I don't even know if that exists anymore. I see his tweets and his Instagrams. I don't know why.
Yeah, it does. I read about Audrina getting married because she just recently got married on PerezHilton.com. So then we go back to the Hillside Villas. And Jem,
this is the classic, quintessential drunk dialing scene of all time. There's so many good things packed into this episode.
Jem, all this scene makes me think is we must have missed so much stuff at Area because they really weren't there that long based on the editing. So how in the world did they get so drunk?
I think they were pre-gaming with Jem Bunny in the bunny sweater at the apartment.
And then I bet they were post-gaming afterwards because there were empty wine glasses on the coffee table. And so they probably post-gamed and then called Spencer.
Okay, so the coffee table at Lauren and Heidi's apartment was like a graveyard of drunken, dashed love, ruined dreams, tragic realizations about the man she loves being surrounded by the most beautiful playmates in the world. It's just, typical scene, typical Friday night, whatever night they were out in town. The coffee table kind of tells the tale the next morning.
It really does. Lauren is yelling at Spencer on the phone while Heidi hysterically cries and says she's over him. And Jem, I would like us to act out this scene.
Okay. All right. So in this reenactment, Susan, you be Lauren and I'll be Lauren. Ready? Go.
I had to pick up the phone.
Just like I had to pick up my best friend and carry her upstairs. Yay.
We're so good at that. That was amazing because Lauren's so mad. I love how her voice raises in intensity because you can tell she's thinking, wow, that was the perfect thing to say.
I love how Heidi is just lolling all over the couch trying to use her words, and she's like, I'm over you. It doesn't matter. I'm over you. Whilst Lauren is lecturing him sternly, Spencer, no, Spencer, good boy, sit, treat. Spencer, you want to go outside?
And finally she's like, Heidi will call you tomorrow, and she hangs up on him, and it is like a powerful moment.
Didn't we go through this in a taxi on maybe New Year's Eve with Jason and Lauren and Heidi being her spokesperson on the phone?
Why, yes, Jem, we did. At least she can return the favor. Things come full circle.
They really do. They really do. Well done, Lauren. Way to return the favor. Now you're even.
And then we go into the dramatic montage of the girls in the apartment, Spencer in the club. Lauren tells Heidi, you're too young to fall in love. Spencer says, let's go, team playmates. And the episode...
Whilst clutching his BlackBerry, I think.
And the episode ends, and we don't know what will happen with Spidey. Is Spidey over, Jem? Could this be the end of Spidey?
No! I'll never let go, Spidey.
Neither will they. Emails, tweets, and Instagrams. Oh my!
So the other day, Susan, we posted an extremely vital and important poll on Twitter asking our listeners and fans to rank their favorite girl on The Hills. And we got some really great responses. You know, though, we really brought a lot of conflict into some people's lives. They just couldn't make those tough decisions. Our Twitter follower, CNReed93, says, I mean, how am I meant to choose between Elsie and Whitney? They're the bestest of the friends. And we talked with her. We worked through it. We agreed that it was a difficult time and sometimes life brings on difficult decisions. But I feel that she followed her heart in the end and made the right choice. And now Lauren is way on top. But this was only after we sent out an important tweet alerting the world that Whitney Port was in the lead. And then suddenly Team Lauren came out of nowhere and took the lead. Moving along, this was a hard moment for us because we were called out on something we were doing really wrong. We were screwing up. We were sucking at life. And Susan, you and I didn't realize it at the time, but we were really letting down Aramore 212 because he did not feel like we had enough Whitney gifts on our Twitter feed. And you know what, Susan? He was right.
He was right, Jim. We really, really dropped the ball. And, you know, Whitney is one of our favorites. And I know she hasn't gotten a lot of screen time in season 2, but it's just really tragic that we've done this to her.
Erin, you looked us in the eyes on Twitter. You looked into our souls, and you told us where we were remiss, lacking, failing. But you know what? We rose to that challenge that you gave us. It wasn't too late. You know what I did? I found some Whitney gifts and I tweeted them, and Aaron was so happy, and he lived happily ever after. We also did another fun poll asking everyone what their favorite part of the podcast was. I thought that they would pick Jem and Susan are hilarious. Or
I know, right?
Yeah, I felt a little let down, but, you know, we'll grudgingly give the prize, since it's not to be awarded by us, to the theme song, which I like to call You and All Your Pretty Little Friends, for short. The super catchy theme song that plays at the beginning and end of each episode, written and performed by the talented Josh Lamkin, formerly of a super fun Southeastern band called The Brilliant Inventions. Look at their stuff. Check out Elliot Bronson, who still tours and sings from the band. But thanks, Josh, for writing our song. You win the prize, and we love you. Also want to say hello to Naomi, one of our OG fans. Naomi, we know that you're going through a tough time, and we're with you. We love you. We're here for you. You just let us know anytime you're having a rough day, and we'll holler back on the 8 forms of social media that we all communicate over. But we really love you, Naomi, and appreciate your support. Finally, let's talk about amazing Twitter handles. We appreciate Leslie for saying that she's also obsessed with Heidi's Walk, which we've spent a lot of time working on.
You definitely have.
She said, y'all are hilarious. Thanks, Leslie. We know. And she said, OMG, each episode takes the Bechdel test. And this may be our first social media recognition of the very important work we do from a Bechdel perspective. But let's just talk about her Twitter handle. It is Hot Messly.
That is an amazing Twitter handle. I am so jealous of people who have those awesome Twitter handles that incorporate their names in such a clever way.
Well done, Hot Messly. We love ya.
Does this episode of The Hills pass the Bechdel test?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say this was a big, fat Bechdel failure. Feel free to prove me wrong, Susan. Feel free.
Jem, I'm going to agree because I don't want to count them talking about fashion. I mean, Heidi and Whitney talked briefly about fashion or something else, but I don't want to count it. I'm just going to say no. This episode of The Hills does not pass the Bechdel test.
I think it was just meant to be a non-Bechdel-y episode. There was just no hope for it.
There really wasn't.
Winners of the week.
Jem, who was your winner of the week?
My winner of the week was Elodie, because she got to fly along on the Mullet Max versus super mad Spencer throwdown in the streets. Elodie did not get shoved. She did not get flung in front of an oncoming Los Angeles traffic. She didn't call anyone a tool and didn't get yelled at for calling anyone a tool. She was merely an innocent bystander who got to enjoy and absorb the drama. But at the end of it all, she got a hug and an air kiss from Spencer and a flowery apology that he didn't mean. And she had a great story to go back to the office and tell everyone about.
Jem, my winner of the week is Audrina, because she managed to make friends with Heidi again. They made up, and everything everything's cool with them now, but she also managed to slip in a little Spencer shade. So I did appreciate that, and I think she's the winner of the week.
Audrina, you win a lot. I have a feeling your winning is about to wane. Jem.
And Susan's funniest moments.
Susan, we got to the funniest moment when we were discussing scene by scene. We were right there. We were just about to get there, and then you just moved right along, and I breathed a sigh of relief because this was only worth bringing up during that funniest moment segment at the very end of the podcast. When Heidi was asked, were you with Spencer 2 or 3 weeks ago, Heidi said, hold on, let me check my planner.
Dug out a giant planner.
I definitely remember, whilst I was dating multiple boys or just one at a time, I was able to consult my planner whenever someone asked and be able to tell everyone whom I had been with on what days. Totally normal, right, Susan?
Super normal, Jem.
Do you think that she opened it and it said, Dear Diary, today Spencer and I saw each other and went on a date?
Jem, the funniest moment of the evening for me was Spencer shoving Max and then saying Max had assaulted him. And we already talked about it, so that was the funniest moment for me. It was hilarious.
That's assault. I mean, that's assault.
That's assault. Oh, you're doing a great job with smiling and talking through your teeth.
Yeah, but I think I sounded more like a donkey than a person.
There are some people in LA that are. There are some people in LA that are. There are some people in LA that are.
Jem, I think we both are going to have the same pratfall tonight, so you go ahead.
I 110% guarantee you, stake my life on it, give you my firstborn child. I know we do not have the same pratfall. You know how I know? Because I totally cheated and picked a completely different pratfall than I should have ever been able to pick, since there was a long article in Cosmopolitan about Spencer and Heidi that recently was in the news, and I just happened to read it earlier tonight. Did you know, Susan, that Spencer and Heidi were in Cosmo's list of the 2016 most fascinating people on the internet? And Spencer's pratfall was saying, my biggest regret is not becoming a Vine star before Vine ended.
Oh, Spencer, you haven't changed much.
And would you like to know 2 other entities who are on this list of most interesting, along with Spencer Pratfall's Pratt?
Who?
Ryan Lochte.
Ugh.
And the Chewbacca mom.
Oh, gosh. We just dated our podcast, Jem. Anyway, since you cheated and picked a pratfall that had nothing to do with the episode, I will tell you what my pratfalls is.
My cheating was allowed because there was a lot of low-key cheating by Spencer in this episode. See how I tied it all in there? It all comes together.
Anyway, so my pratfalls of the evening was the entire episode because he did so much wrong stuff through the whole thing that I couldn't pick just one. The pratfalls of this episode are freaking out about Audrina and trying to sabotage what she's going to say, hooking up with or hanging out with the playmates.
Playmates rolled in.
Who rolled in.
Rolling
being a
along.
jerk to Max and accusing him of assault, being a jerk to Heidi and Aria. Just everything all together. It was just a whole big pratfalls of an episode. Thanks for listening to Words Unspoken, the Hills podcast. Here's the scoop on all of the many ways you can contact us. We'd love to hear your feedback and ideas for the show.
You can email us at wordsunspokenpodcast@gmail.com.
You can find us on Twitter at The Hills Podcast and Instagram and Facebook at Words Unspoken Podcast.
We are even on Tumblr, which definitely did not exist when The Hills first aired. And you can also visit our website, wordsunspokenpodcast.com.
Please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. We are also available on Stitcher, Google Play, and SoundCloud.
We'll talk to you next Friday.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
You and all your pretty little friends up in the hills where the party never ends. Your schemes and your dreams when you're whole and you're broken. I'm telling all about it in my words unspoken.
Oh my God. I have the last word. I'm the editor.